really was a year ago that we were finalizing our concept paper for the Lilly Endowment's Phase 3 um, Pathways for Tomorrow, a initiative across North America, the United States and Canada, seeking to support schools of the Association of Theological Schools, about 280 member schools eligible for funding for what turned out to be well over $100 million through the whole initiative. The third phase was a very large request for proposals, first in a concept, and then later, if you were invited forward, in a full proposal for up to $5 million to support collaborative initiatives with other theological schools, colleges and universities, organizations, and denominations to strengthen and support the life of congregations in North America. That really is the center of the Lilly Endowment's purpose. And so this request for proposals was to strengthen schools and to encourage theological schools to be in partnership with one another and with other organizations to really work at sustainability, institutional sustainability in this time of tremendous shift in higher education and theological education in the life of the church. And we were successful in the concept phase and learned last Christmas that we had been invited forward. And that then created a whole new season of effort to produce a full proposal that would compel the Lilly Endowment reviewers and staff that indeed we as an institution had done our due diligence to create a plan and a set of initiatives with collaborators and a budget that would be a sustainable approach to this concept. And so we proposed that, finished that proposal the end of June, this past June. So it was a massive undertaking. And there is a person in the room who deserves a special shout out. And that is our Reverend Dr. Mary Schaller Blafus, our Vice President for Advancement and Communications, who really captained the writing and editing of this piece and the production of the budget and the project plan. She, along with Reverend Dr. Sonia Williams, our Dean of the Seminary, and I were a kind of a trio who developed these initiatives together over the course of the year, and we just had a blast. Well, I'll speak for myself. I had a blast working with these colleagues and seeing their networks open up in service of the seminary and its mission. And it truly was, the whole experience of it was an experience of divine provision. To make it through this time of COVID and to shift in all the ways we have and have been sharing with you that the seminary has been shifting to a blended campus of digitally and physically present teachers and learners that is nationally engaged, as well as we pray ever more internationally engaged, that this is happening, and it's happening because of the great work of people like Mary and like Sonia and like the whole faculty and staff at Eden Seminary and all of our collaborating partners. So we learned just a couple weeks ago that in fact we were fully funded, well, fully funded minus $5. I don't know what happened to that $5. $4,999,995 is coming at some point in this month in a check from the Lilly Endowment to Eden Seminary to fund a 5-year project of 3 initiatives. And we are calling this the network model of theological education at Eden Seminary, and Mary has a document that's just a few PowerPoint slides to share about that. If you can tolerate that in this presentation, I'll try to move through it quickly. Just to give you a little bit of detail, the network model of theological education is, Mary, if you could go to the next slide. Thank you. This is related to the Pathways for Tomorrow initiative, the third phase. There were 3 phases overall. The first phase was an impact study. We were eligible for $50,000 to study, and we chose to study our contextual education program, and we were given $50,000 to do that at the beginning of the Lilly initiative, and that turned out to be a really helpful step in the overall 3-part plan, because we were able to really dig into the last 20 years of our contextual ed program and really analyze how the last 20 years of our alumni have been shaped and impacted, and have in turn impacted the progressive Christian movement as leaders because of that curriculum and the distinctiveness of that curriculum at Eden. So what we really learned is that curriculum, as a faculty has known for a long time, is the heart of sort of the Eden way of theological education. And it embodies a collaborative approach in and of itself with congregations and organizations of the church, immersive, mentored formation for ministry in context, so that students, as they are studying theology, are also always reflecting on that and applying it in conversation with mentors in ministry. And that approach has really been the center, the heart of the Eden curriculum for over 50 years. Certainly for the last 20 years, it has been as well. And to be able to study that and to see the fruit of that in our alumni, who are more engaged in community ministries, whose congregations are collaborating and networking themselves, and really bearing witness to the vitality of this kind of approach to ministry and the sustainability of that. That was like jet fuel for our continuing to develop this proposal. So we took that learning and we began to imagine how we could expand that contextual education approach, how we could scale it up using distance education. And I know that sounds a little counterintuitive. How can you do contextual education online? But that is really what we have been building with our collaborators. And it is a very exciting thing to be a part of. So the Lilly Endowment put out the call to collaborate, and they were only going to consider proposals that did that and that worked to provide a compelling and sustainable strategy for theological education going forward. So they know what's going on in the church. They know what's going on in higher education. They know schools need support to make this move, to resist hunkering down in a scarcity mindset and stepping forward to share resources and collaborate. And I think this initiative was a brilliant way to incentivize that step. And it got all kinds of schools coming together and all kinds of partners coming to the table to think creatively about how we might design concepts to do that. So that was Lilly's approach, and our response was to create a network model for theological education. So we call it Navigating the Shift, because that's what we're doing. We're in the midst of that. We don't know the end of it. We don't know what the institutional forms of the church are going to look like. But we also aren't giving up on the congregation. And in theological education, particularly in the progressive mainline, it has felt a little bit in vogue I would say, in the past 10 years or so, to just say, oh, well, I guess the congregation is a thing of the past. And particularly at a time like this, when fascism is on the rise and misinformation and disinformation and the forces of tyranny and anarchy and violence are arising, we can't abandon social organizations committed to the common good like a congregation. So yes, the form of the congregation is obviously changing and shifting, but it will endure in some form. People will gather in ways to worship and to pursue mission. And we in the progressive traditions want to be about strengthening and supporting communities as they navigate that. And so we really put together a way of saying, we're willing to break open the seminary's resources and approaches to theological education, to reach out into the church, to build networks and to build pathways to both connect with the church in new places and new ways, and to create access to the seminary's resources to strengthen and support leaders and congregations and organizations and ministries of the church moving forward. So far from the death of the congregation, this is the church on the move. And as congregations are navigating this shift, so is the seminary, and so are theological schools. So Eden Seminary is poised to implement a set of institutional collaborations that are shifting our perception from being a center based on a residential campus where you gotta come if you're gonna get the good stuff, to really, as I said, breaking that open and sharing those resources in new ways, going places where we haven't gone before, breaking open our programs so that they are more accessible to an ever more diverse number and set of learners. And that really is the sort of case that we made in our proposal. So part of a reason why this shift is happening, as you know, and I share this wonderful picture of the Schreer Commons from, I think, 1936 or something. You know, as wonderful as this image is of a full commons at a mealtime, students aren't coming to Eden by the train load anymore. They are not coming all in one cohort at one time of year. We have ever had to increase points of access in what have been our traditional semesters into a much more kind of 365 days a year educational opportunity plan. And our faculty have had to adjust to that. Our staff have had to adjust to that. And that has been how we have been building this out. Through COVID, we were pushed off the residential model into the online space. We had been pretty fiercely committed to our residential model. And we learned a lot through the past few years about teaching online, and that we can do this effectively, even in programs like contextual education, where our professor of contextual education is now training contextual education supervisors in contexts across the country. And this is how we are really taking the Eden way and breaking it open from that residential model and creating more. We aren't abandoning the residential model, but we are adding the online approach. So now Eden's resources for learning and faith are connecting with students wherever they are. And this is a screenshot of a chapel service where we've got students participating in just a regular morning chapel from Texas and Wisconsin and Maine, and gathered with participants who are physically present in the chapel. And this is what we are calling our blended community of learning and faith. And it is the way we have designed our classrooms, the way we have designed the chapel, to really increase access to the resources of the seminary and to extend the seminary to learning about the church in different contexts as well. So teaching and learning through this shift, a seminary of the progressive Christian movement better be ready to move. So that's what we've been working at, kind of like almost like a physical fitness program for the last few years. We've really been building our muscles to do this, our capacity to do this. And this funding from Lilly is, we kept saying, whether we're funded or not, this is the way we are building the school. So in a way, it wasn't a distraction or a sort of, sidebar thing we were working on. We kept it at the center because we knew whether funded or not, this is the way we're going. And the funding and the affirmation of the approach is, of course, wind in the sails and encouragement for the seminary and our collaborating partners. So online technology, Zoom, asynchronous teaching and learning, which is done on a web portal platform using video chat, using the resources of technology to create new kinds of communities that aren't dependent on the physical classroom. This is a huge shift in teaching that the faculty has undergone in the last year. And we are so proud of both our core full-time faculty and adjunct colleagues who are really paving the way in beautiful ways to extend Eden's approach in this new direction. Collaborating partners in the network model and in the progressive Christian movement have lots of resources with which we can be expanded and developed and encouraged, and we have resources to support them. So coming together is a way of combining our assets and strengths to get through this time of shift when we aren't really sure institutionally what form a theological school or the congregation or any kinds of ministries of the church or communities of the church are going to take in the next 10 years. So as we're in the midst of the shift, let's step together and share the good resources we have so that we can navigate this time of shift together. And so the initiatives are really designed to do that. They're built around, as I said, this existing collaborative model that we've built, that our forebears at Eden for the last 50 years have built in contextual education, which is really built on the prior 125 years of commitment to working with and for the church. So this is Eden down to our 1850 roots, and it really is drawing up into the way the church is being called to move in the world now. So we've done this regionally in St. Louis. We've got a network here of over 100 progressive congregations and organizations, mission agencies of the church. Well, let's expand that nationally. And so that's what this proposal is doing. It's really giving us a way to connect more broadly with these kinds of organizations and missions to do theological education in partnership and to meet candidates for ministry and leaders in ministry where they are. Now, via online learning, we're able to do that. So the network really has three different dimensions to it. The first is with theological schools. And this is a way to really build capacity. So freestanding theological schools of the progressive main line, of the progressive Christian movement, are struggling. We are struggling around issues of enrollment. We are struggling around issues of sustainability, around resources to equip what is, as I've said, a time of shift. And how do you, we need more resources, and yet we need more faculty, we need more areas of expertise, and yet every school can't on its own develop all of the resources it would need unto itself. And so this is a way of us coming together to say, okay, we share an ethos in common, a commitment to progressive theology, a commitment to the critical study of the Christian faith, and to developing leaders who have a heart for resisting institutional racism, for resisting heteronormativity and homophobia, ableism, colonialism, imperialism, for being a prophetic public witness to God's justice and God's love. So that kind of ethos really is something that we can share, and our courses and our faculty share this. So why not use the online environment as a way to build catalogs where we can share courses, and if we negotiate this among ourselves, we can share faculty to move through this time of shift, so that we don't each have to develop bigger and bigger faculties to compete with one another, but that we can really intentionally discern what are the charisms of each of our schools, and our faculties and boards of trustees can discern how we're called intentionally and strategically to develop, rather than reacting to every little faculty retirement or change or need of the curriculum. And so this really creates a collection of courses. And the schools, as you can see, are schools really of the heartland of North America. From Saskatchewan, 3 schools joining us from Canada, an Anglican school, a United Church of Canada school, and a Lutheran school that form the Saskatoon Theological Union in Saskatchewan. And coming down from the prairie in Saskatchewan to the Midwest and southern states of the United States. So we've got United in the Twin Cities, Chicago Theological Seminary in Chicago, Christian Seminary in Indianapolis is joining us, Memphis Seminary in Memphis, and there are additional schools who are considering being a part of this model even yet. So this is really an exciting opportunity for our faculties at first to come together and talk about progressive theological education, talk about our resources, and then begin to build this shared catalog. United Seminary and Eden have been trying this out for the last year, and it's been going fantastically well. So it really is an exciting development, and I think the first major collaboration among United Church of Christ seminaries, beyond Q, the fundraising effort, that I think we can really be proud of and excited for, and eagerly anticipate how this is going to move forward. In addition to that initiative, there is an initiative with undergraduate colleges and universities, again, primarily connected with the United Church of Christ. This is to both, really what we're calling this is a way to expand demand for theological education. So college students and these colleges that are associated with the UCC have these centers for socially transformative contextual learning. They have them. They have curricula that are committed to that. They have students who are passionate about that kind of learning and who want to seek it out. And you know what we call that at Eden? We call it contextual education. But they're not going to come here for that, and they're not going to sign up for that. But if we collaborate with the centers that they have and engage them by sharing with them motivating, inspiring speakers who are working in congregations and activating those congregations as platforms from which to be engaged in socially transformative work, well, then we are awakening a new generation to the potential of the congregation as a space in which to pursue social justice and the common good and community engagement. And that really is the beginning of that model, to share the story and to have a speaker series really at these colleges highlighting the rock stars of congregational ministry who are doing social justice and socially transformative work, to illustrate how this is a powerful way to be about social justice work. And then in addition to that, to provide students in these socially transformative educational centers at their colleges opportunities to get graduate credit at Eden, in our justice school, in our organizing school, in our anti-racism education programs, in different dimensions of our contextual education program, which then become the initial pathways that we begin to build with these colleges and universities to create what we ultimately are planning will be expedited degrees of a Bachelor of Arts and a Master of Divinity, or a Bachelor of Arts and a Master of Arts Pastoral Studies, where students are getting in 4 to 5 years instead of 6 to 7 to 8 years, a combined degree that will empower them in this kind of leadership. And then finally, working with and collaborating with conferences of the United Church of Christ to really step toward the church for the first intentional time and way since the marks of ministry and alternative paths to ministry were developed by the church decades ago, to develop what we're particularly good at in theological education, which is assessing leaders for their capacity to do ministry. We've been doing that for 172 years. So we have some ways of doing that we can share and make accessible to committees on preparation, committees who are working with members in discernment, to help them work with their members in discernment to discern what marks of ministry is this candidate meeting? What marks of ministry do they need a special attention to develop? And what are the resources? What is a catalog of offerings? It might not be a full degree. It might be contextual education and several courses and a few certificates. This is really moving more toward a model of higher ed called competency-based education. And that's what the marks of ministry are. So the church set a new standard, and it's taken us a while, but we are really stepping into partnership with the church to support this. We are no longer in a corner having a pity party for ourselves about it. We decided to get over it and step to the church and really see what we can build to create a way of strengthening and supporting leaders in their context. See, this will take contextual education even more into those different contexts of the church, into different conferences. And it really is about trying to not extract those leaders out of those contexts, to let them stay in their context and continue to serve there, and yet have the benefit of mentored, curricularly supported theological education that is designed for them to help them meet the marks of ministry as they move along. So these 3 initiatives are the network model. And Lily said yes. So of the 280 theological schools of the United Church of the United States and Canada, 16 were funded. at this level, and Eden is one of them. And for that, we say thanks be to God. And we are incredibly excited to continue this work because, as I've said, in many ways, it's already begun. But this is a very busy time at the seminary as we are rolling this out and working with Lily to kind of understand what the guidelines are for the next 5 years, working with our collaborators to begin ramping up even this year to engage in these initiatives and build them, and to continue to work with the Spirit as we are moving through this time of historic shift. And so we ask you to join us in Thanksgiving for this incredible provision, and we ask you to keep us in your prayers as we move forward in all the work and all of the opportunity ahead. So thank you.